You're listening to The Angry Designer, where we cut through the industry bull to help frustrated graphic designers survive and thrive.
What's up, Angry Designers? So today we have a super crazy ass special treat for you. Today we have brought one of my long-standing heroes, and I know he's just kind of like humming and hawing and rolling his eyes, going like, "Yeah, hero, nothing," or whatever. But I mean, again, I have followed this dude for a long time. His work I've been always so envious and jealous about, and you know, he is doing something really cool in the next little while. And again, that's what spurred up this whole conversation. So you know, we started talking, and you know what? Perfect person for this show. So I want to introduce Allan Peters.
Woo!
Right?
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Dude, honestly, no. And again,
Thanks,
not to fangirl. I told you, like right from the start. I mean, I'm going to have to keep myself down on this one, right? Because it's just your work is always so good. But before we get in crazy about this, okay, let's first talk about that story, because we've already had a great conversation up until here. Mm-hmm. Sean and I, cheers, buddy.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, man, I should have brought some.
Well,
That's okay.
I got my busted iPad over here. Could drink the water out of it.
You drink the water.
never drink the water out of that.
Well, it just came out.
You
of the
got
washing
so
machine.
angry, you
Bring it out.
busted an iPad.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, because again, that sign behind you is legendary. Okay, because I always see it. I'm always so jealous of it. It's a fantastic piece. I want it for our office. So when you're done with it, send it over here. Okay, what's the story behind it?
So the story behind this sign, I got hit up by Right Way Signs. Some good folks out of Chicago. I don't know if you follow them at all, but they do amazing work and huge, like giant murals and things like that. They did a whole headquarters, I think, for Jack Daniels, where they did like just beautiful lettering pieces and stuff like that on there. And basically, I could tell you a whole story about them, but let's skip that. We throw out some, they said they needed a logo. I gave them the price, which wasn't that high. It was like my lower end price. And they're like, how about we do a trade? How about we do half money, half sign? And so I was like, that sounds awesome. You know, they figured like, hey, we can make some social media posts about this. We don't get to do a lot of like this style of signage, you know, because most people want, you know, like the plastic stuff that's backlit and more expected things. And so it's a way that they can flex their skills a little bit and, you know, show off.
Oh, hold on, you got to turn it on. You got to turn it on. I want to see it on.
Oh, yeah. I can leave it on for a minute. It makes a little ticking noise. So if that's annoying,
Look at that.
Oh,
Is that not ridiculous?
That looks so
Okay,
cool.
so I recommend anybody, you know, go visit our YouTube channel and check this thing out. Yeah. It is... Dude, every one of your Instagram posts should be on like this.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So this sign here, I designed the thing. I lay it out. I'm like, I want this channel lettering. I send them examples because, you know, like I love going and digging in antique stores and taking pictures of old signs and stuff like that. So I'm like, I want this channel lettering with the neon running down the middle, and then I want this part, you know, raised up about, you know, a 1/4 inch. But not lit, but then this whole area would be lit. But I had all these like I laid this whole blueprint out, sent it to them, and then we went on a family vacation. And Maria, my wife and partner in the company, she's like, "Don't look at your phone when we're on vacation. Just like as little as possible." So, anyways, I get this email from them saying like, "Hey, we had to make the sign slightly bigger because I designed it to be like 2 feet tall, just like
bigger.
Nice little sign that would fit in my office, right?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, we had to make it slightly bigger." They sent all the measurements in, like in centimeters. And I'm from America. I'm too stupid to like sit and do the math. I'm like, sweet, it's gonna be bigger. Make it. I didn't want to I didn't want to be on my phone super long, so I'm just like, yes, approved.
Do it.
and later on that trip, I was like, I should really see how much bigger that is. The thing is, like, it's like 5 feet tall. This is like way behind me. If I stand up against this thing,
Oh my
Oh,
God!
man.
Look at that!
Oh.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
to carry that thing up the stairs is nuts, man. You know,
To reinforce
or
that.
hanging it. I need like another full-size man.
Yeah.
Dude, oh my God, I love it even more now. I mean,
Yeah.
again, we need.
Totally. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sweet sign. Neon signs are expensive. But that said, I bet you could do something with them that wouldn't cost quite as much. And I kind of regret it a little bit. You know those old vintage signs that are done in the same style, but they have little light bulbs in there?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
I should have done the light bulb thing instead. I mean, that's a little bit more carnival, but
You know what?
Yeah.
Right now, neon is totally hot. Like with that whole synth wave vibe, the '80s kicking in. Right now, I think that's like $1 million sign. I think you're sitting on something that's gold.
Yep.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
just got to find another Peters Design Company, and I can sell it for a mean tiny day.
And Sean, we're gonna go apply for that tomorrow.
That's right. I'm changing my name.
Change the name.
That's my sign. It's huge. I was born in '80.
In 80.
1980.
Oh, okay.
And so my childhood, that it's like the G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, Voltron.
Best era, in my opinion. Best era.
Good one.
You know what? If you want to feel nostalgic, just go and listen to that G.I. Joe entry song again, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
theme to G.I. Joe, and it's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
want to feel amazing.
Yeah.
Well, geez,
Oh,
I
and then
don't
Legos too. I had so many Legos growing up. Old, like when they had like the space set and the castle system and stuff like that. I still have. That's one thing that I kept from my childhood, because I'm like, Legos haven't changed. So
It's timeless,
Yes,
absolutely.
my kids, when they got old enough, we found all the instruction booklets, and I sat with them downstairs for like months, and we sorted everything out and made all the sets. And then they just
Amazing.
destroyed them and just mixed
course.
them back up again. But it was actually
It's fun.
kind of relaxing going through and just looking for a specific piece out of like a million pieces. I don't know why I find that enjoyable. I think it's the same thing I get from when I go to like an antique store and I'm looking for old badges and crests. It's that little boost of, not adrenaline, that like endorphin hit that you
It's
get
just the rush.
when you
Absolutely.
find the thing you're looking for, and you're just like, yeah. Like just a moment.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was the best find you've ever had at an antique store? Antiquing, and it's not
Um,
antiquing. I understand. I wish there was a cooler word for it.
I
Design.
call it
I don't know.
I call it badge hunting. I take almost a badge
Badge
hunting.
hunting. Well, and that would
hunting
explain
for
your
badges.
style. Okay, well,
Which
hold
is
on.
just
Answer that first.
It's a lame name because there was this one dude, Type Hunter, and I think he just went by Type Hunter.
Yeah.
I still know him. He's a good dude. But I was like, well, I'm looking for badges. I'm badge hunting.
Badge.
And this is like years ago. This is back in like 2007 or something that I started doing that and taking that. I've been doing it for years. Honestly, I would like to write a book where I get the budget to drive across the country and just go to antique stores and make a whole book of that kind of stuff.
Dude, that would be cool.
That would be
honestly.
heaven for me. Just making it, I would be so happy. And we
Well,
could, my wife and I have talked about it. Like, we could put vinyls on the vehicle and we could write the whole thing off. And
really neat. Well, and that's the benefit of what we do for a living, because I mean, you can, as long as you get, give good old Elon a call and you get like a satellite mount system on top of your, your road vehicle, and you
Right.
can take your work on the road, pull over, work by night and hunt by day. Except
Yes.
you cannot call yourself a badge hunter, okay? Because you can call it badge hunting. I just
Yes.
don't want to be badge hunter. Is a little it's a little bit crazy. But with that being said, okay, so I think, and I mean, I almost got into a fight with somebody on one of your, like it took everything behind me. Because I think I even called you. I think you did a post a couple weeks ago, and you were like, you put all your badges out there. It was just phenomenal. And I was like, dude, like you are literally the master of badges. Like you kill this space. And some guy's like, well, I don't know if I'd call him a master. And I mean, for literally a whole day, I was trying to get the right, like, how do I respond to this guy without insulting it? In the end, I didn't want to disrespect you by putting something nasty. But dude, it caused me so much anxiety when somebody was like not agreeing with the fact that your badge skill, like, I mean, the stuff that you create is phenomenal. Like you have this style, you own this style, I think. Like from the start always, or is this like, how far back has this gone?
my first job out of school, I remember my buddy Nick Smozel. I was working with him, we worked at this little studio called Initio, and he was working on a freelance project like after hours there. So like, and I always would just, right out of school, I'd work late hours all the time just because they told you should, like in school, they're like, make sure, like to get hired on for an intern and all that, to just work your ass off. And so I was doing that, and I didn't have kids or anything, so it wasn't that big deal. But he was working on some freelance project, and he was going to design some badges, and he had a whole bunch of books out, like design books that he brought in from his house. Awesome. And he was looking up old like Charles Spencer Anderson badges and crests and stuff like that. And at that, I mean, this was a time before like badges kind of came back or were in style again. You'd see them every so often. Like there would be a couple companies that would do them, but it wasn't like it is now, where it's more commonplace and almost like back in. I feel like it's back in. Like you wouldn't be blown away if you saw like a big brand come out with a new logo and it had a badge in the system. You just be like, yeah, that's fine. But I remember seeing that and looking at that, and it kind of sparks up in my head. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. And I didn't get into it at that point at all. I remember seeing it, and I'd see a couple people doing it here and there, and you'd start to see it on like rock posters and stuff like that. There's a agency out of Minneapolis called Aesthetic Apparatus, and they're legendary. They do tons of band posters, and they've been doing it for years. And
nice.
Like they'll be like, I remember one year they basically were like, oh, let's just submit a bunch of our posters to Communication Arts, and I think they gave them a full spread or two of just posters, and like every single one of them got in. They just I've never seen that in CA, and like the design annual, I was like, damn. Those guys did it right. That said, they were digging through antique stores. They were digging for old stuff, and even CSA, Charles Spencer Anderson. I had lunch with him when I worked at Target, and I remember he was saying like, you know how you go looking for antiques and stuff like that? He's like, I've been doing that shit for like 30 years, kid.
Just to throw in the kid part, of course.
I don't know if he said it quite like that. Charlie, he's a nice dude. He's very kind, very polite. I that's just me trying to make the a little more humorous, but he's a nice guy. But yeah, he was like, yeah, I've been doing that for years. That's what I do for a living, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you'd see that stuff, and it wasn't until probably around like 2006 or 7 or something like that. I was working at an agency called BBDO, and I started getting some opportunities to do work of that style. I remember I was branding an event that was for Hormel bacon. It was like this bacon event, like a baking competition. I was like, oh, that's kind of badass, actually.
Wait,
I like bacon.
Bacon or baking?
Bacon. Like bacon, like all sorts of interesting,
like swine.
Ways. Yes, like delicious bacon, like
bacon
candy.
A baking competition. I'm like, pies
bacon
or pig.
competition. Yeah.
And so it was called the Bacon Takedown, and it was a competition where these folks would like make awesome recipes with bacon and compete, at a big old festival. And so I just did like basically rock posters for that. In essence, just these bacon themed, like awesome posters, and did it all with like crests and badges and like a vintage feel and fun illustrations. Cool. Nice. And like won a ton of awards and got a lot of recognition. And it was the first time I was like, oh, people like this, and I really like making it. I think I'm gonna do more of this.
Yeah, and, cool.
It had that balance. Like the can it win awards? Yes. Is it making somebody money so they're willing to pay for it? Yes. And do I love doing it? Yes. It hits all those things. And you know how it is. The whole point of this career is just to find something that you love doing it, and then just make money doing it, and keep doing it as much as you can until people stop paying you for doing it, because it's so fun.
It's so true, though, right? It's like the money is just the outcome. It's like the necessary evil.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're doing something that you love on a daily basis. I mean, we profess this all the time. I mean, it's like we're rock stars. We're not doing this necessarily for the cash, because if you're doing it for the cash, maybe not the right industry for everybody. But if you're looking for just the fulfillment for yourself and just a creative journey, and it just so it doesn't actually feel like a job. I mean, this is it. So good on you for that. Yeah. Has it ever? Okay, so here's a question. So you've definitely got a unique look. Has it ever lost you a job because you have a unique look?
Having a unique look is a good thing, because it's not a good thing if you're working at an agency, because they're coming in there, they're buying the agency style, and they're like, I like this, I want more stuff like this. And so if you have a different style than they have, they're going to be like, well, what is this you're showing me? This isn't what I bought that, and now you're giving me this, and I might like this still, but it's not what I was expecting. Where with me, my portfolio is filled with the kind of work I want to do. Cool. And so when people hire me, that's they know what they're gonna get, and they're expecting that, and they get excited when they see it. And I'm like, awesome, I'll just keep doing it. It's like Jessica Hish. You go hire Jessica Hish, you know exactly what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because she can really focus and hone that style and get really, really good at it.
Yeah.
And just continually get better in a focused niche rather than spreading it wide.
Yeah.
I think the only thing with having a specific style is making sure that it's broad enough that you can still stay creative, that you can still have fun with it. And I found like doing passion projects and things like that aren't for clients. It lets you flex your skills a little bit and then make sure you're filling your portfolio with a little bit more diversity.
Yeah. So now let me ask you, so you've developed this style, this look, this theme that you are absolutely known for. And that has obviously come from a decade and a half of work. At what point did you start? I mean, because obviously you started prior to honing just this look. You know, were you struggling at the beginning trying to adopt other styles? Were you like when you started, did you just take everything that you could and just kind of acting as a chameleon? Like when did this kick in for you?
So out of school, they basically said like, when you're going in for that first interview, and this I was graduating in 2002, 2003, I think 2002, and then it was right at economic downturn. You know, the economy sucked at the time.
Yep.
And a lot of people were getting laid off. And then
Yeah.
I graduated and I was like, let's go find a job in this economy where everyone's getting fired. And I remember my portfolio teacher was like, you need to tell them that you'll do damn near anything. Like you'll mop the floors, you'll go polish the doorknobs, and you will go in the paste up room and clean up all the Super 77 gunk on the side of the spray mount booth, whatever. Just tell them you will do it. You'll take all the worst projects, you'll take all the grunt work that you just want to work with them, and you just want a chance. They basically said like, that's what you got to do right now. And so that's what I did. And coming out of school, I in this career, you develop taste over time. You develop kind of, and not just like, oh, I have good taste. It's like I have my taste. This is what I like, and then what I know sells. You learn that. It's wisdom over time. You're doing this for 20 years, you're going to learn that, and it takes a while to find your niche.
It does.
At the beginning, man, I was trying all sorts of different things. I was trying different styles. Whether it's, I don't know, more modern, more grungy. You should see some of the ugly fonts I made a couple of years out of school. They're awful. They're like so
about
gross.
That time.
And the crazy thing is, I came out back when like Flash was hitting hard. Adobe, remember Macromedia Flash?
Yeah.
Oh man, dude! And I get all my
Flash.
My first couple portfolio jobs and jobs I got because they knew I could do their portfolio. They're like, oh man, this kid can program and code Flash, and he's super good at the animations and adding all sorts of sound effects to all the buttons and everything.
Oh yeah,
let's hire this kid. Beep, 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 like I'd have like freaking things bouncing all over the screen.
So true though.
And it wasn't until, gosh, my third job out of college that all of a sudden I got something into print magazine. I wanted like a legitimate national award.
Dude, that's
And
actually
this was
huge
in, like,
for so early on.
2004, 2005, something like that. So it's like maybe it's 2006. It's somewhere in there. I was working at this little shop called Industrial, and I came in there, and they were small. It was like 5 people, and they didn't have the greatest reputation or portfolio. And the guy was like, who ran it, EJ McNulty, who's an awesome dude, and he leads this gigantic global like agency as the ECD of North America right now. He's big time. But at the time, he got this awesome offer to basically be funded to start an agency because it was his dream, and he was like on the board with another guy, and he's like, listen, take a shot. And he gets to kick this whole thing off, and he's just kind of trying to figure out his way and hiring people and just trying to make this thing right. And he came from a job where he was a salesman, and like a really good salesman. He sold like pipe fittings of all things, like and pipe, like all sorts of like stuff for like oil pipe
sales.
Yes,
B2B
hardcore sales.
Yeah.
This man taught me so much about selling work. He was so good at it, and such a nice guy. And selling work is all about, in case you're wondering, it's not the greasy car salesman guy. It's the guy who you're like, dude, I want to invite this dude to my wedding after this. That's the good salesman. The person you're like, let's go grab a beer, man.
So true.
So I learned a lot from him in that sense, but he basically gave me the keys to the creative. He's like, I'm not going to sit and nitpick your work. I want you to just basically stretch out and make amazing work, and I will sell it. And I got a lot of great opportunities working there, and kind of figured out a style, and it was a great jump to get me into the next step. Like then I went into advertising, worked I wanted to learn to be an art director, and so I bought a book on it and started making commercials and print ads and stuff like that. And then I got the opportunity at Target, and
so you went from industrial. Or wait,
okay,
what was before industrial?
I worked at a little shop called Initio, which sounds like industrial.
Fair enough.
Initio, it ends in O. I worked at a little shop called Uno, which was a Hispanic-focused design shop run by a guy named Luis Fitch. He's awesome artist, and always keeps it small. Really, really amazing work. I learned a lot about color from him. And then worked at Industrial, where I learned to sell and how to I basically really got to figure out what my style was and what my niche was at that point.
Yeah.
Worked at BBDO, that still ends in a damn O. Big old global ad agency.
Yeah.
And worked on big brands, and then got the opportunity at Target, which I came from an ad agency, so I was working like 60-hour weeks. It was all crazy and stressful, and I come to Target where people are working like, they're working 40 hours and maybe even leaving a little early on Friday and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
And they're happy, and they're just like, they're getting by, they're doing their work. And I come in there, I'm just like, I want to make awesome work. This is like the coolest client I've ever had. It's freaking Target, man. I've been working on Hormel Foods and stuff up until this. Man, let's go. and I was taking on any and every project I could possibly get. Just like I did their home brand Threshold and their core branding. Like I did 2 rounds of the core branding that's like on the outside of all the stores and what the bags look like and all sorts of stuff, man. So like if you go to Target, like there was a time period, 1 year where I remember it was like in springtime. I had designed the seasonal signage when you walked in. I designed the stuff on the outside of the store on those signs, and then I designed all these like end cap things, like all the end cap signs that when they didn't have one specific for a sale, it was like some sort of thing about selling all their different ways you get things shipped and stuff like that. It was like their 4 differentiating things, 5% off with a red card, that kind of stuff. And it was like those were on half the end caps in the store. It was like you could walk through the store and look at the signs, and I designed like a quarter of them, and it was crazy.
Rush, right? When you're actually seeing your stuff out there, and I mean, okay, you were going on purpose, but you just stumble across it like on just a daily basis. You're like, oh shit, I did that. Oh wow, I did that. Right?
Especially a quarter of
it was crazy. It was a crazy moment for me, and that's it. I mean, I worked with teams. It wasn't like, hey, it's the Alan Peters show. It wasn't that. It was like, I worked with awesome people, and we made some awesome work. Like the great writers, project managers, creative directors, and stuff like that. I had a lot of people helping me out and making these things come to life, and I learned a lot at Target too. So that really sounds like an ego trip the way I just described that. But like for me, I was just excited. I was like, man. Target was growing up, man. Target was such a cool brand. So
absolutely, still is.
It still is.
Well, and that's it, right? It's a huge design icon, right? Everybody, okay, because obviously, we've seen it all up here. Up here, we only had a taste of Target for a little while north of the border, and when we did, all the designers, we all flocked to the store. But I mean, I guess everybody else was they were too damn cheap, and they were kind of going, they were pushing back. So Target was only up here for 12 months, but. Dude, like it would have been like working underneath a design icon, or Target is a design icon, but like under like a master or whatever. Just because it just seems like that whole culture thrives on design. No,
they have such a big design team. It's crazy. It's like
and they
over 150 designers or something. It's there's so many people because they have the clothing designers. They have the product designers. They have the so they have different departments of designers too. So there's a lot of creative people that you can learn from and stuff like that. I remember I was working on a storage and org thing where I had to do basically I wanted to do some dimensional type, but I had seen some stuff where it wasn't done in 3D and it was like physical then photographed, and I was like, oh, I want to do something like that. And I found the department that had 3D printers, and then I was like, here's what it will look like. I worked with a guy who rendered the whole thing. Then he printed it off. Then we sent it off to another shop to have it sanded down and painted. And we had like a photo studio in-house for shooting all the products for .com. So we could I could go next door to the photo studio and just, if I had an idea for a concept, we could shoot it. It was nuts.
Cool.
It was so cool.
That's
Yes.
So that was an incredible in-house experience. So then how would you compare then? Because I mean, we constantly have people reaching out, and I mean, they're always reaching out. Do I stay freelance? Do I go to an agency, or do I go in-house? So what was the biggest differences for your experiences? Because you went agency, big agency, and then target in-house.
Right. One of the great things about running your own studio and taking on freelance work and choose, you can choose how much, if you have the opportunity where work is coming in and you're not stressed about getting enough work. Mm-hmm. If you have enough work coming in, you can control the flow to a degree. I mean, it takes a little bit to adjust, but you can make sure that you're not going to get crazy overloaded. Yeah. So I think that's always the ideal thing, I think, is running your own thing, because then you can keep the stress level right where you want it to be, so it doesn't get too overwhelming. If you're going to be going on, like traveling, or like something coming up, or you're going to have a baby, you can cut it down a little bit, and then you can ramp it back up. So that's nice. You can control the spigot, where you don't have as much control if you're working for somebody else, no matter who it is, no matter agency or whatever. And then culture is another thing. You're going to have different cultures at every place. I've worked at little shops where the culture was more relaxed. I've worked at, ad agencies where the culture was work all the time. And it was especially like crunch time when it was coming down to time to present work at the end. And then I worked in-house, and in-house was great. But I think it's because, how do I explain it? It's like you had because there were so many cool projects, it'd be like that kid in Willy Wonka where there's the chocolate river, and he just can't stop drinking the chocolate, right? And then he falls in and gets sucked in the damn thing.
Yeah, it was just
and he deserved it. Damn it, ruined it for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, the work and the projects were so awesome that I would take on a little bit more than a comfortable level, and I could have,
you mean?
And I could have controlled that more.
Yeah.
But I remember there were certain times where there was a moment on a shoot where, near the end of my time there, where I did stress out and have a full on panic attack, with the only one I've ever had in my life, just because it was late night and there was so much going on, and I was trying to do a freelance project after I was shooting the work. And it was a campaign where I needed to I basically photograph it, and then before we could wrap up the photo, I had to mock up, make sure it fit nicely in the layout, because the photo had to integrate with the graphics.
Yep.
And so I had to speed mock it up, and with all 50 of the shots that we were doing, and it was so stressful. And then I'd go home, or not go back to my place I was staying, and then try and work on this other project at night. And my wife was like, "Oh, I'm gonna come visit, come see you while you're out on shoot." So she was gonna come out there, and it was just there was all of it was
going
great
on.
stuff.
Yeah.
I just was overdoing it, and it was my own fault. And I don't want to have a panic attack ever again. I didn't like that.
Jeez,
But that wasn't why I left the Target or anything. I got a laptop back when I was working there, my own laptop, and I had all this time. We had moved out to Eagan, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it was a 45-minute bus commute to and from work. Rather than driving and sitting in traffic, I would just sit on the bus in traffic with all the business
That's
people.
smart. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I would work on freelance projects and fun little passion projects and things like that. And I hadn't really done that much freelance. I didn't want to work at night and overdo it while I was working there. But on the bus, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna be sitting here like watching movies on my phone
That's
or
like
reading
an
a book
hour
or
and a
something.
half every day. That's a ton of time.
And well, I like designing.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and I was getting some cool clients. I was doing some stuff for Nike. I did a whole bunch of really cool projects on the bus, and ESPN. I did a whole bunch of stuff for ESPN on the bus. And so I'd be like sitting there, you know those long seats on the side of the bus? Yeah. I'd be sitting there with like my Pantone book on the side, like, with the Pantone's laptop here.
There's that graphic designer again, taking up the whole half of the bus.
They probably thought it was crazy. But my wife, God bless her soul, does her taxes, and I remember it was the second year I had the laptop. She was doing the tax at the end of the year, and she's like, "Damn it, Alan, you made more money on the bus this year than you made at Target." And so, way back to that first job, the initial one. Remember, I was saying I was working late nights, and Nick was looking at badges.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. My wife was in school at the time, and we weren't married yet. And she would come in and hang out and do her homework, and I would stay until like 1 a.m. for like no reason other than to just like try and make all my projects as good as possible, try and be better at my craft. And we would talk about like, well, what would the future be like? You know, what are our dreams and hopes and stuff? And we always wanted to have our own agency. It was always a dream of ours. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is I had read this book right here.
Wait, what is that one?
Paul Rand by Stephen Heller.
My buddy Pop Rand.
Yes, I read this book around that time.
That's brilliant.
And I was like, this guy, like, I want to do this. I want to be like this man.
Yep.
I like his logos. I like how he works. I like the craft. I like the creativity. I like his style. I like everything about what's going on in here.
Yep.
He has like that beautifully designed gravestone even.
Yep.
It's nuts. And I'm like, Paul Rand, man. I'm like, one day, I want that book that says Allan Peters across here. Yes. How amazing would that be? Yes. And that's kind of like the spark for, like, I always wanted to write a book. That was a list. On the list.
I know, right? Well, I mean, again, that is how this whole thing started. It's because you are coming up with your book, right? As soon as I saw it, I'm like,
congratulations.
Boom. I put in the order, and I was like, I want to let you know, I already bought it.
Yeah, man.
But still, like, how awesome is that? Like, I mean, that's a whole nother level, right? Because like you just said, you just credited Paul Rand's book. And now this is not, this is not per se, look at all my stuff I've been working on. Look at, this is my story of my life. You're actually, putting down some of your whole thoughts, beliefs, everything in place with this.
Right. You might look at the cover and you're like, but Alan, what's with this book? Is it 200 pages of just logos? Is that it? No, there's so much more to it. So the book's called Logos That Last. And I get into exactly that. What makes a timeless logo? How do you make something like that? Like, what are the qualities that go into making a mark that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to not have to be replaced when the trend wears off in 4 years, or when the new CMO comes on and he's like, well, time to redo the logo. That one sucks anyways.
We lived through that.
Yeah, we all have. And so I
apparently shared the same type of experience as well. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, so I go into like all the pillars of like what makes. I've done a lot of research. I've studied. I've been doing this for a long time, as you guys, we all have for that matter. But I've been doing this for about 20 years, and I figured out, at least from my perspective, what makes a logo timeless. There's certain things you can't control, like time. Obviously that's the true test of a timeless logo. Is it going to stand the test of time? And then with time, people see it more and more, and it becomes more ingrained. Mm-hmm. The marketing money, like how much money is invested. McDonald's is that the best logo you've ever seen?
No,
probably not. But it's one of the most memorable because you've seen it so many times because there's so much money back in it.
Yeah,
it's in the architecture. It's on the sign. It's on all
they have
these
built
commercials.
it to their brand. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the marketing that's a big part of it. You don't have control over that as a designer. Sure. And then the last one that you don't have control over is the product quality. You know, how often do you like design something that where the product just sucks? You know, and there's nothing you do about that.
Yeah.
But then here's the things that you can control, guys. There's your personal passion, like how much you're going to pour into this. Like, usually when you see these marks that have stood the test of time, they're usually designed by somebody where like they're just pouring. I've got a book over there, a Saul Bass book, and I remember there's like some pictures in the back where he's like working with a team on like United, or like there's another photo of like the war room when they're working on the Bell logo, and it's like hundreds of sketches on the wall, hundreds and hundreds of them. It's insane, and you know they're just like poor. That requires a lot of passion, a lot of time, and a lot of effort, and a lot of just. They could do 10, and they could just go in there and sell them, and that would be fine, and they would get away with it.
True.
But to pour yourself into it at that level, you know, there's a passion there. So there's you know that passion.
Agreed. 100%.
I put on the list, and they have a spread about the beauty. You know, and my publisher was like, "Are you sure?" When he was, that seems like very subjective. I'm like, well, you know, certain things are just beautiful, and colors can be subjective. Like, you might hate the color orange, or you might like the color orange. You know, that's subjective. But if something is beautiful, you could be like, oh, this person likes it, this person hates it. But usually, if you did if you tested 100 people, you know, it's going to go one way or the other. It might 80% this way, or whatever, 70%, 30%. It's going to lean one way. And usually a lot of that has to do with, is it a beautiful mark? You know, like the CBSI is a beautiful mark. That's so good.
It is.
You know, you look back on some of these, the IBM logo that Paul did, it's so good. It's so beautiful. It's so simple. And then originality. You know, it has to be original. You know, there's so many marks. Like, how many circle logos have you seen before? Whether it's USA Today or like a ring. I mean, I've seen so many circle logos.
Target.
But Target, at least, like, they own it. Like,
They have owned
that's ours. They have like their whole like legal team like defending it. Like, we own the bullseye. Don't
Can you
mess with
imagine?
us.
You
And that's
cannot
fine,
use
you
a
know? I'm not trying
circle
to
in
be a
your
bullseye
logo. We own that.
That's them. You know, those big brands, like they'll like buy a Pantone color.
They
and
will.
they're like,
I know.
They will, yeah.
Pantone color.
Yeah, that's hardcore. Holy.
And that's cool, man. But originality is important. Functionality, is it going to be functional? Can you like it to stand the test of time? You can't have things that are a pain in the butt. Like, I've had so many clients where I start working with them, and they're like, hey, we have these pain points. You know, our current logo is hard to embroider, or our current logo is a nightmare because it's, you know, 5 colors, and every time we print something, it's super expensive, or has gradients in it or something. There's all these issues that make it not functional, you know, for reproducing. And so if you want it to not get replaced, make it easy to use, right?
Absolutely.
Color. I think color plays a big part. I remember back when Landor did FedEx, the marketing objective was like, because they had Federal Express before. Like, the marketing guy was like, I remember reading a story about this. He's like, I want to make sure you can see those trucks in New York City in rush hour from 2 blocks away and identify it as a FedEx truck. That is like the brief. Right. And so they're like, okay, we need to, right now they had a Federal Express diagonal on the side of the truck. Well, they want to fill that space, and so they went down to FedEx. You know, fewer characters, a little bit more rectangular.
That's
They
brilliant.
put in that beautiful little negative space arrow that a lot of people don't even see at first.
Yeah.
But then they made the purple super saturated, and they made the orange super saturated. They just amped them up just a little bit, you know, and they probably charged $1 million for making those changes, right? But color, you know, having something a little bit more brighter saturated, you know, and that's not always the case. You know, sometimes you're doing a more of an earthy brand, and it needs to be more earth tones. But I think color plays a big role in whether something's going to be timeless, because there are trendy colors. And, you know, if you want something to be timeless, you know, a lot of the times when you see a rebrand where it's a evolution, where they just take the same mark and amp it up, they juice the colors a little bit more. So why not do that right away from the beginning? The story, you know, is there a story behind it? You know, how many monograms have you seen where you're just like, yeah, it looks like another monogram logo. Nice. Yeah, there's nothing memorable about it. Or the worst is like a single letter in a circle. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, that's the logo. There's got to be more to it, you know. Like, what's it memorable? How are you? What's that hook? Nike, it's speed, right? It looks fast.
Yeah.
That CBSI, you're looking out, they're feeding you the news, from their perspective, right?
Totally.
And there's a story behind those things, so you can remember them. And then the last thing is, simplicity. It's got to be simple. That not so simple that you lose the story, but really simple. Because that's the other thing. If somebody's going to evolve your logo or take it another step later on, they're going to make it a little bit brighter, and they're going to shave a little bit off. How do we do it in fewer moves? Do that from the beginning.
Jeez, that's brilliant, actually. I've never thought about that. Don't think about what you're creating right now, but think about what somebody else would do to your logo 20 years from now.
Exactly.
Right? That's
how can you take? So get done with it, and then look at it and be like, okay, if I were to evolve this and take it to the one step simpler, but still have enough there to tell the story. How would I evolve it? So those, and that's just part of the book. I go into my whole brand mark process. How do I make brand marks? And we can talk about that in a little bit. I get into so I like to start with figuring out all the subject matter, and then I work with my client to come up with that. I'll call it like the brand noun process. Come up with what can be like, what's the story? Is it going to be combined a star and some N's? That's one of the logos in my book. Is this like like a pathway and a P or a P and a D? You can look at it a couple different ways like that, right, leading to a middle goal. What are the different things? What's the iconography that we can use as the Legos to start building something?
Start building that
and
process.
So I have a whole section in there where I break down like all the different ways to combine and bring things together. Whether it's negative space, the overlapping geometry, visual rhythm, unexpected twist, unexpected visual flow. So I'm giving all sorts of tips. So when people are getting in there, I've got books over here.
I love this. He's got a wall of books.
So no offense, this whoever wrote this book, it says like designing brand identity, and it goes into all this strategy, and it is like almost like Excel sheets, like level, like we're gonna figure this out and figure out who to target market and all this stuff like that. And it's like all the stuff that goes into writing a brief. And there's great information here. That said, if you try and look in here and like figure out, okay, I need to make a brand mark. How can I make an original awesome brand mark that looks like it's gonna work well? There's nothing about that in here. That's what my whole book's about. My whole book is like, let's actually make some logos. This is for the designer. This isn't for the strategy person. This is for the person who's going to be building the damn thing.
Well, because I think so many people struggle with just understanding what the process is. I think, everybody's process, or not everybody, but I think so many people's process is they go online, they take a look at what's out there, and they tweak it and make it what's hip, what's not, and make it their own. And, again, we've been doing this for way before this was available online. And we had to actually come up with processes, just like the fathers before us who did, right? Yep. The process is where the value is. It's where the money is. It's what you sell, and it's what changes $100 logo to a $10,000 logo plus. In my opinion, it's just everything else, just like you said.
Yep. So remember earlier when I was saying like how awesome it would be if I got to write a book on just badge hunting and going and looking for badge and crest. I have a whole section about inspiration and badge hunting in here, so it's part of the book.
That's so
it's
awesome.
not the whole book, but it's
so cool.
I worked it in there.
And
then
you'll get that big one.
You'll get the big one.
Yeah,
we'll sponsor part of that. Okay,
I want the big one. But then like brand extensions, because I love like taking a logo, taking the geometry and extending out to patterns, to icons, to flourishes and bad shapes, custom typography, illustration. How can you take what you've learned here and then flush it out to a whole system so nobody ever says make the logo bigger? Because the brand is embedded in the DNA of every piece of the brand identity. So I get into that. And then I talk about brand evolutions. Gosh, I'm going on and on. But running a creative shop, I talk about my shop and how I got the inspiration for it, why you would do that, how it's a great creative outlet to make the type of work that you want to make more of. And then also, I also do case studies, and not just case studies, but like going into like, here's the sketch phase, and here's the this, and here's the concepts, and like working through the whole darn thing, and showing case studies, and then also showing passion projects. I mean, this book is jam packed full of information that's going to help somebody. Like not just pretty pictures. Like if somebody actually wants to sit down and read the thing,
this isn't just a
learn.
fanboy book. This isn't just something I would buy because, I love his work. I love his work, which I would do. Okay, in all fairness. But you're actually giving some helpful meat advice to help people. Yeah. That's nice.
I'm trying to share. And that's what I always wanted to teach. That's always kind of been in the background. Nice. Oh man, I would love to go and teach a class. But at the same time, I always thought hey, if I read a book, I could teach a lot more people than a class of 20 kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it could be a lot more impactful. So I'm excited about this opportunity.
This is crazy, dude. Yeah. Like honestly, it is. It's like we talked about, like when you're able to publish a book, it like takes you to a new level.
Yeah.
It's like our parents would be like, "Whoa, there's a book about him. Now he's legit. He's not." All these years they had no idea what I would do for a living, but now there's a book. Well, he has a book. That's why he's good at what he does. Dude, that's amazing.
Great. That's great, and especially something, like a deep dive for the designer. I think that's really, really cool.
So then, with that being said, right now because you've got a deadline of October for release. Is that correct? Is it October?
Yeah. But I have to have it done by middle of April. So I'm almost finished.
Oh, you are.
Then there's all the refinements and fine tuning.
So what's like a day of your life look like right now then? Because obviously you're still working, I'm assuming.
I've got 4 kids. Yeah. And like I said, Maria homeschools them, and I work from home, and so it's every day is a little bit wild. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And you never know what's going to happen. Like I told you guys earlier. There was an iPad got put in the washing machine today.
It's crooked. Yeah. The thing is crooked.
You don't know what's going to happen. And our little guy had some serious health issues at the beginning of the year. He has a super rare disease where he has like malformed lymph nodes in his cheek, and so we were going to the hospital and the doctor constantly for a while. That's resolved, but it was while he was going through that, there were like 2 or 3 months where I was getting up with the baby 3 times a night, probably, and then trying to run a business and trying to write a book and trying to do.
I was gonna say, so how do you balance that without losing your mind and going postal?
The way I set it up for myself is that I just was like, I'm taking on less projects during this time.
Right.
And I don't know if I've done that well. I've still taken on projects.
Of course.
I turned away probably more. There's been some good ones coming through. Let's put it that way. There's some really, really nice, tasty projects where I'm like, I got to do that. Everything works out. You always get to the other side of it. I've had all of these moments in my life where I'm like, I can't wait until, like 2 months from now. That's when I'll have all this, whatever, my senior thesis written in college, or whatever thing I was dreading at that point in my career. Some big project that was super difficult, and we're gonna have to get it all done. And there's always been little things where I'm like hoping and praying and waiting for this moment to be all done. I try not to stress about it as much now. And now that I'm older, I think it comes with just being an old man.
An old crusty man.
My biggest challenge and most difficult thing that I have in my life right now is being a good dad. I want to be the best dad I can be for my kids, and it is a hard job with 4 kids. It is a real challenge. When I'm at work and sitting in front of this computer making logos, that's not the hard part of my day. That's the part I'm just like like a happy kid. I'm like the 13-year-old kid that's sitting in front of a Nintendo all day. That's how I feel. I'm just like, yes. Yeah.
It's true.
It's
perspective, right?
It's fun. I don't know. I love making great work. That's what I like doing. And being with the kids, I love being with them in the same way but different, but it's just more of a challenge. I don't know. Everybody's built for different things, and they're good at different things. And God made it so a design came to me like I put in the work and everything, but He just made it so like it wasn't a real challenge for me. Yeah. But being a dad, I don't know if it is for everybody, man. It is hard.
It's a hard.
It is hard.
Yeah. Shit, yeah, man. Honestly, I couldn't have said it better. It's like I feel the design comes natural. I do that.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's easy. Even tough times in design are just like a cakewalk when it comes to anything else. But,
Yeah.
parenting my kids, for a couple of years, I'm not going to lie. I think I was focused a little too much on the business and growth and this and that, everything that that society tells you need to do, and YouTube tells you and Instagram tells you. And I think, sadly, I did neglect them a little bit more than I should have. I caught that quick enough, I feel, but I saw that if I wouldn't have changed my ways, it really would have fucked things up. Sorry, it would have fucked things up totally. It would have. And I was able to correct that, put everything back in perspective. I didn't change my business in any which way, shape, or form. It was just my outlook, right? How I approached everything. And I feel I still put the same amount of hours in and everything. It was perspective. It was just a matter of realizing, both were equally important, just in very different ways. One was, self-fulfillment. One was like legacy, if you want to put it that way. And if my kids see me stressing and bugging and crabby all the time because, if I'm not at home, I'm thinking about work and this and that. Well, that's what they're going to turn into. And I'm going to raise these little assholes. And I don't want that, even though I know we preach about being angry designers and being angry about the space, but we're still fundamentally about people first, human first, be good to everybody, be good to your fellow brother. I mean, and I couldn't live with myself if my kids turned out to be assholes because I was too selfish on what I'm doing right now, right? So it was finding that balance. So I hear you, brother. I totally do on that part.
Yeah, man, it's tough. How do I put it? Because I'm with them all the time, like it's not like I'm going anywhere. And the thing is, I'm not working at a place like Target where I'm just hanging out with my buds all day. I stand up and walk over and be like, "Hey man, what's up? I like that font you chose. What's up, man?"
I love impact, Sean. Good job on that impact choice, buddy.
Impact. He always rips.
See? He's laughing.
I know.
He's laughing.
He always rips on me because I like impact.
Dude,
And
he likes impact.
I'm not going to make any apologies for that. A meme wouldn't be a meme without impact. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't use it anymore.
Yes, he
there's
does.
There's no point to it.
We had to put in an office policy at Z Factor that no computer was allowed to have impact on
locked.
it.
It's locked in safe.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for Helvetica. A lot of people hate Helvetica,
No.
but that's probably my only one where there's certain people who are like, "Oh, use Helvetica, you're such a loser." But I think Helvetica is a great font.
You know what? Unfortunately, you can't go wrong with Helvetica. It's just I feel like everybody jumped on the Helvetica trend, or not trend. Everybody jumped on it, which turned it into a trend, which now on the tail side is making everybody roll their eyes when you use it. But that's why secretly I kind of intermix Inter once in a while with Helvetica because it's so close. I can be like, well, I don't use Helvetica. I use Inter.
Check out Aeonic if you haven't used that one. It's by Mash Studio. They're awesome. It's Aeonik. It is a great Helvetica substitute.
All right. That's good.
That's good to know. Yeah.
It's nice to have some good Calibre, or maybe it's Caliber. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Wow, you used that one? Really?
That one's pretty solid. You know what I always like? I love when big companies like Pentagram or something. It's like, oh, we just did this rebrand, and they actually say whatever sans serif they use. And I'm always like, what are they? Yeah, this one.
What are they on? What are they doing?
What's the cool new sans serif? Tell me, Pentagram. Yeah. Or when people post like a brand manual online, I'm always like, what fonts are these?
What fonts are you back it up? You deconstruct it, you do your own. Well, and that's what, you know what? How often do I tell people? People are asking, how do I elevate myself? How do I get to the next level? And my first go-to is find people you like, find work you like, and deconstruct it. And then reconstruct it. So do exactly that. Go to Pentagram, see what they're launching, and break it down into pieces, and then rebuild it up or rebuild up your project.
Masters like Paul Rand and Saul Bass and all these folks, even folks alive, like maybe you're into like Draplin or George Boca or Brent Couchman. He runs an awesome studio out of San Francisco. You could easily you take their work, and you could figure out how it's made. I think the magic and the trick with it is to not turn into a clone of that. And students have a hard time with that. They'll reproduce and like rip something off basically completely. It won't be their idea. They're just not only like looking at and studying a style. It's like they're just reproducing it. And if you do that, like let's say you're studying something, you're figuring out how it's made. Like as a student, just don't post that work. I think that's my advice for you. Like, you do it for yourself, learn how they did it, and then on your next project, when it's actually for a client or whatever, take some of your learnings and apply it, as inspiration, not as emulation, right? So, but everything is a remix. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's a video series on YouTube called "Everything's a Remix," and it's all about it's based on music, but it's like Led Zeppelin, and it breaks down like all their influences and how like all these songs are like direct lifts here and there and samples and things like that, or the Beatles, all of these major bands that have been so influential, like they're especially nowadays, you'd have a hard time getting by trademark wise because they've made it way more difficult now, and that hurts innovation in general. But artwork is the same way. With books, they call it the Great Conversation, right? It's you look at J.K. Rowling and her books, all her Harry Potter books, and how much Lord of the Rings do you see in there? You go back, C.S. Lewis, you can see all sorts of influences in her books. I'm sorry that was really loud.
That was huge loud. I thought it was my pocket.
But same thing applies to graphic design. You see a lot of inspiration, and you end up seeing a lot of overlap when people are inspired by the same people. You can see, like, I have a unique style, but you can see other designers that have similar styles. And it's not that we're ripping each other off. It's that we're all like, I really like that, I really like Saul Bass, and I really like this as Alvin Listag, and I really like, it's like you have a lot of the same designers where you're inspired by their work. And because of that, there is, the influence, it tends to be similar.
Okay. So I agree with what you said about, following similar, looks and, and when you can follow that with line weight and, white spacing and font choices. But what you do, unlike anybody I've ever seen, and you do it on a regular basis, okay, is your attention to white space. Like, you're pulling off that FedEx logo with the arrow again and again and again, right? Like, you can't copy that shit. Like, your logos, like, and again, I'm going to show these on the YouTube channel, but DP, North Stars, what you did with, your Passion Project USA logo, I'm guessing it was, your Golden Bear Equities, your Firecraft Pizza, that, for the record, got ripped off locally up in Mississauga.
Oh,
locally?
serious?
Somebody locally up here. So we're going to go pay them a visit. Okay, we're going to send the Angry Designers up there to be like...
That logo has been ripped off so many times. It's crazy. Like, I called somebody, like a pizza place out on the other day, but it's been... Some designer had put it on like Getty, and I had to get that taken down. And it's been ripped off repeatedly, and it just drives me crazy. That one and the Egan logo. The Egan logo has been ripped off so many times, and it's like giant companies in Brazil using it. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Okay, well, let's first talk about that. Before we get into how you get to these awesome negative space, how do you not lose your shit? Sometimes my blood boils, I cringe, I spend a day trying to figure out how to reply back to somebody who dissed Allan, only not to, and I absorb it. How do you not go nuts on this?
I think this kind of thing has been happening forever. It's always happened. Whether you're going to like a thrift store and seeing some, knockoff shirt or whatever, or like I'm trying to figure out, like a flea market. I know somebody's selling a bunch of fake Coach purses or whatever it is. There's this kind of thing has happened for years. It's just more apparent now with social media and with the internet. It's hard to hide it. It's hard to get away with it. And as a designer, you end up seeing it more. I think when I was younger, I used to get heated about it a lot more, and now that I'm like, it's happened so much, and my work gets seen by a lot of people. I've got a lot of followers, man, on like Instagram. It's like over 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's bound to get if it's not directly ripped off, it's where you look at something, you're like, it looks really close to something I did, but you don't. You're like, whatever, just keep it. It's fine.
Jeez. How do you? I give you
fine.
credit.
It's
dude.
fine.
Is it flattering, or is that just a bunch of bull?
No. I don't think it ever would be. Somebody rips off your work, you're like, man, I put so much heart into that, and hours and
the
just
hard work, and they just put it
I
on
did all
Getty
this
and
work.
stole it.
Yeah, well, I do 15 brand marks that you present to a client. I don't do 3, I do 15. And I have to do a whole bunch to get to that 15 before it narrows to 3, and then they go down. I do a lot of hard work to get to that one, that like distilled down golden nugget. Man, we were watching this show on the elements the other day, because of the, homeschooling. And so we're eating dinner and we're watching this awesome Novus special on the elements, and they're taking, they like have these giant bulldozers full of dirt, and then they're going to make gold. They're going to get the gold out of it, and they have to distill it down, and finally they get down to this pile of like muddy dirt, and then they take that and they distill it down, and finally they end up with like a couple of gold bars that are worth like $1.5 million a piece, and it's awesome. And it took like multiple truckloads and I don't know how many hours and a huge giant space that could do this, but you get down to that pure essence, and it takes a lot to get there. So when somebody just walks out and be like, oh shit, I can look at my fake gold.
Yeah.
I made it too.
Yeah, look.
I made
Takes
it
you off a
too.
little bit.
That's classic.
I just changed the color.
I know, right?
Yeah,
It's totally
work
different.
hard on that, man.
All right, fine. Good for you for being calm. But how do you come up with all these? Like, you find the most amazing uses of negative space, and not to mention the stuff you did with the your Velocity Youth Program, or your FM lines, or the freaking bicycle.
Yes.
Einstein. Dude, what? Okay, let's start with the negative space. How?
Okay, so I make a lot of stuff. I work with. So I might not take on a lot of clients, but I charge a little bit more because I do a lot for each one. Like I said, I'm thinking about that Saul Bass wall that has 100 logos on it, and I'm like, I gotta step my game up. If that's what I'm aiming for, and I want to be like that dude, then I gotta be like that dude, and I gotta work my butt off, and I gotta put the time in. And you put the time in, you come up with the good logo, and people talk about it, then you're able to charge more, so you can do that whole process, right?
Yeah.
Because there's companies out there charging $1 million for logos. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not charging $1 million for a logo.
Yeah.
But I charge $50,000 for one.
Yeah.
And that's not every time. Believe me, I'm not charging churches $50,000 for a logo.
Yeah.
But it had depending on the company and the
It
size.
happens.
And the
You're
scale.
not a $500 guy either.
Yes.
Yes.
No, right, and it takes, if you make, it's, how do you put it? It's like walking in and going up to the slot machine and trying to get the jackpot, and then just sitting there for like 15 days, just putting quarters until you finally, you're going to hit it eventually.
Yep.
You sit there for a month and a half and you just have unlimited supply of coins, you're going to hit that jackpot. Yeah. And no matter how much time you put in, no matter how good you are, you got to work hard to get something that's really good. Like that bicycle poster with the stripes.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things I've ever made, and that was a long time ago. And you think I don't want to keep making logo posters as good as that every time? Of course I do, but sometimes lightning strikes, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite pieces. Same with negative space logos.
Yeah.
It seems you're like, man, he's done like 12 negative space logos. And I'm like, yeah, and I've been doing this for 20 years, man. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've made thousands of logos, so many brand marks. If I'm doing 15 every time, and let's say to get to those 15, I'm doing 100 sketches, so if I'm doing, dang, that's loud. Oh no! And it's just somebody bought some on Squarespace. It's gonna like send me like 4 emails right in a row. Here's the paid for. Here's the. It's oh man.
There he goes again. Yeah.
Don't you touch it, man.
I don't get that many emails usually. Oh, you know what?
You know what? His
I
wife
can
Maria's in
quit.
the other room sending him right now.
No, it's.
Let me make Allan look like he's popular.
I quit
right
my
now.
mail. Okay, good. It is gone for good.
Dude,
That's all I
oh,
had to
that
do.
was fun. Oh, okay.
If somebody buys something on my Printful shop, it says like somebody sent you a PayPal thing, and then I get another email that says Printful says the order came in.
Yeah.
Now the order, and then I get another email. The order's been submitted. Now your order's in
He doesn't
process.
know.
It's like 5 emails. Like,
4
bam, bam, bam,
things
bam, bam.
together just to say, yeah, this happened. Yeah.
I could probably opt out of all of them, but I haven't. That's like the one thing where I'm like, yeah, and I sold a poster, and it like, because I don't sell a ton. I don't sell a ton. Right? Sometimes I do, but I get excited still if I'm like, yeah, I sold a T-shirt.
Yeah, totally.
It gets me excited. Okay, negative space logos. Yes, 20 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of sketches to get to 12 negative space logos where I'm like, these are solid. You know,
Solid.
I did one at the beginning of the year, maybe it was the end of last year, for like a wine club from a Texas wine club, and it has a horseshoe with a negative space wine glass. That's like the last one I did where I'm like, that's solid.
It is solid.
You did one with
Firecraft, dude. Firecraft, man. I was I had hopped on one of Draplin's live feeds during the pandemic. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he goes, Leigh says, she's like, hey, Allan's in here, and Draplin's like, Allan, I want to put you on right now. I want to talk to you. And I'm like,
Damn.
okay, let's go. I have like kids downstairs like running,
Running in,
so, like, yes.
jumping all over you, Legos.
I'll
shooting
drop
Nerf guns at your
everything.
head.
And he's like, man, I was in South Dakota, and I was getting some pizza from a pizza truck, and the logo was awesome, and I was like, where did you get this logo designed? It's amazing. And they're like, oh, this guy Allan Peters. He's like, oh, I know that guy. I know that guy. This is good. And he goes, Allan, you taught me something that day about logo design. You should feel damn good about that. Like something like that. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Draplin.
Right on.
Like,
my God.
he's the man, you know?
He is the man, yeah.
Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good day.
And I think that this is the perfect spot to end the first half of a two-parter of our conversation with Allan Peters. So this was such a fantastic episode for us. And again, is meeting passionate designers who love what they do, who are good at what they do, and like help people along the way, like who aren't selfish, who are humble, and who are just so fucking cool and human. This is, in my opinion, the epitome of what an amazing designer is. Because again, it's not about the designer. It's about everybody else. And I think half of these people forget this. They lose sight of this. Allan Peters is somebody who, in my opinion, absolutely embodies everything of what a designer should be. So please, if you haven't already, go to Amazon, check out his book, Logos That Last. Again, it's on pre-order. It's going to be launched in October. And you know what? Again, it is not a vanity book. It's not a book all about his logos and his work and how cool he is. I mean, he's giving you all this information in here. He's giving you his whole logo, his whole brand process. And I mean, that alone is worth thousands, if not tens of thousands. I thought I had a solid process. And in talking to him and hearing him go through this and talking to him, off mic, there's so much that now I'm going to try. So, you know what? Again, this is more than just a vanity book. It's a whole lesson. And I mean, it's on a pre-order. So support, awesome designers like this. And of course, if you haven't already, check out his Instagram. So it's Instagram/Allan Peters, and that's ALLANPETERS. I kind of made the mistake of going EN. I kind of felt like a dolt because I sent him something and he's like, dude, like you misspelled my name. And I'm like, I knew that. But you get something in your head and you just can't shake this. So, please come back for next week for part 2. Again, it's an amazing second half. If it's possible at all, it might even be better than this half. I mean, we've got more talk about life, more talk about design. Of course, we've got our infamous 2-minute lightning round where I think we're going to have some really good laughs on here. And don't forget, this episode is also available on YouTube if you're not watching it on YouTube, so you can actually get a glimpse of some of the logos, what the book looks like, and again, just what the character looks like. He's so animated, he's so cool, he's so down to earth. Hit us up on Instagram, guys. Hit me up, say hi, leave us a note, please comment. I try to get back to everybody, and if I don't, please forgive me. And I think that's it. I mean, I'm sure I could go on for a lot more, but you guys have already heard enough. So on behalf of Sean, Allan, and myself, stay creative and stay angry. Peace.